I never fully understood what it was like to actually pursue Jesus and make that like your total identity, and like everything else is built off of that. Not like, here's me, here's my work, here's my friends, here's Jesus, but like, here's me, here's Jesus, and off of that is like everything else. Serge, welcome to Bluntly Bears.
Of course.
It's been a minute.
I know.
It's been since I think the last episode I posted was like September 2 years of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man.
And this is January 2024. That episode was probably filmed a couple months before that. So like, it's been like a year and a half since I've done anything like this.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've definitely been putting in the work in the off season though.
In the off season. Yes, sir. Yes, Serge. This was so awkward. I don't even remember how I used to do this. I would just kind of go into this whole thing and introduce my guest, and we talk about work stuff and career stuff. But honestly, I feel like a lot of my interests have like developed and changed outside of that.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know. We'll see what we talk about today. But Serge, I know you've been it's been a long coming episode. How do you feel about
it's an honor. Definitely an honor and a privilege to be before you today. No, it's been really good. There's lots of stuff has been going on this past couple of years. I know you're primarily work and career focused, but I'd be happy to talk about everything and anything. So,
yeah, and I think when the last few episodes I filmed that didn't even make it out there, have kind of started shifting away from just that. Because for me, I was trying to figure out how I can keep up a podcast that I actually enjoyed and conversations that I actually wanted to have. And like those were kind of shifting from that into just more about life and mindset and thoughts and different things. Really just to summarize too, like the last year and a half and why I haven't been doing the podcast. So back in October of 2022, when I was kind of going hard at the podcast thing, it was getting rough, just because of all the work that is actually going on behind the scenes to put together a podcast. When I'm filming for an hour and a half, 2 hours for an episode, and then typically I was filming with 3 different angles. So figuring that stuff out, I got a bunch of new gear and I was trying to figure all that stuff out. I was trying to figure out my whole strategy for like Instagram and doing shorts. And I was working with a guy that was editing all my shorts and putting like the captions on them and stuff, but I still had to cut the shorts for him and send that off to him. So I was putting in easily like 10, 20 hours per episode. It was outside of just actually filming this and coordinating it and talking to people. And then, it was a lot of work, and I was starting to get really burnt out and starting to like really dread the actual work of the podcast. And then in like October, November of 2022, I got this opportunity to go on tour with Double J Music. So I play bass. You know that. I don't know if you know that. Viewer, watcher, chat, whatever. But I had a chance to go on tour, go to 10 different cities, and I had to learn a bunch of songs. I think we had like 18 songs I had to learn. So put pause on the podcast, started learning that. I also had a lot of stuff going on personally and spiritually, and God was really working on a lot of stuff in my life at that time too. And then like January of 2023, when all the tour was over, was done with that, I really had a lot of stuff shift in my life and a lot of priorities shift. And I kept thinking I'll go back to the podcast, but just started to get a lot more involved in church and between a lot of different stuff. So basically the last year, this is January 2024, the last year of 2023 was really dedicated to finding my purpose and finding like where I'm supposed to be fitting inside of God's will for me, and like working on that, working on my physical walk. I had a lot of goals. On January 2nd or 3rd, I signed up for a marathon. And September 20th, 2023, I completed my first marathon. So that was a lot of
Congratulations.
that was a lot of work, a lot of stuff with the band. So it was just a lot of life last year. And I kept thinking about the podcast. People would ask me when it was going to air again, but I just put a lot of that on pause. But now we're here in when? So I think it was July or August you moved in?
Yeah, July. Yeah.
So
First week of
July. My buddy Serge moved in.
Yep.
And we were close, but we weren't super close when you moved in.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's also natural because I think aside from church, that would be like the only place I would see you. And
Well,
so you could only really hang out so much with a person, and then obviously like once you start living with them, it's, I don't know, obviously it's much closer. And but yeah, I mean, it's been obviously a huge pleasure. And I'm definitely grateful for it.
Yeah, like I didn't know what to expect a whole lot when it first happened, and I think the first couple months really, like we were just kind of living in the same place, but we didn't see a whole lot of each other. But yeah, a lot has been changing and growing in the last few months, but it's really been interesting, even seeing where you like you started 2023 in a much different place than where you ended it, right? Like what it was a big year for you too.
Yeah, I mean, for probably honestly like a lot of the people listening and whatnot. Yeah, my name's Serge. Hanging out with Alex since church, really, since I was yay high.
Yay high.
No, but lots of things transpired in my life over 2023. Like a big reason why I would say 2023 is my biggest year was probably because of my relationship, obviously. Both myself, man, it keeps just cutting out.
Keep going.
Both myself with God, with now my fiance, soon to be wife, and it's really, really interesting seeing that 2023 or at the start of a new year, everyone always has goals, everyone always has something that they want to accomplish, and then really seeing God's hand in all of those different avenues, really seeing those things come to fruition is like a really big focus, really big, just a joy. And then like, especially when you see it's like someone else's life transform, or even your own, it's like, man, it's been a big year. It's been a big, just like success, I would say. Yeah.
So walk us through that. Like, so tell me where I have a very distinct memory of hanging out with you on January 2nd, 2023, going to the Blazers game. And then I guess now, like where were you then? What's changed to leading you to where you are right now?
Honestly, I would say like even then I was more or less just going through the motions, kind of just allowing external circumstance to dictate attitude, to dictate spiritual walk, to dictate more or less everything. So I think for myself in particular is like, this current circumstance, whether if it was getting caught up with the wrong crowd or
me.
Yeah. No, just not even like if it was, you could even be on your own, like when someone is just not in the right state mentally, when someone is just unsure and doesn't have a set goal, like you're only left with yourself to deal with, and not everyone's perspective of that could always be healthy. You see there's people like even in my own life that I saw that, hey, I'm just more or less going through the motions like I was early January last year, and then of course it just took that time to repent, to more or less do a complete restart, set your priorities straight. And of course getting to a relationship was a big deal, and I think that if I set my priorities straight, a lot of good things start to happen. Like you more or less have a goal and a vision you want to accomplish. And I think that was a big bonus or a big plus going into the rest of 2023 was, hey, I set a goal I want to get. And
so when did that happen?
Honestly, the big turnaround probably came, end of May, early June, right around, end of May, early June. And honestly, that probably just came from understanding like, hey, I'm in a relationship now with someone that I want to marry. And then it's like, okay, what are the steps I need to do to get that done? What areas do I need to like buckle down and put some work in? And then, and what do I want that outcome to be like? So for me, I want to get married. Boom. That's a big goal of mine. What needed to change? What needed to change was, I think, my attitude towards how I took work. I was more or less going in and out with my current employer at the time. And then I was like, I had another opportunity that came my way, which, same line of work, just different company with bigger goals, ambitions. So I more or less took that risk, and that's definitely paid off. And then as well as just wanting to really just pursue God with myself, because I knew, hey, when I'm married and I obviously would want to start a family someday, it's going to need a strong spiritual leader. Yeah. I believe that those two things are a big must. You need God, you need a family. And in my scenario, like, I need to get closer to God. So for the longest time, it was, so I would say I got the work side, the career side figured out. And then the big piece of the puzzle that was left for me to accomplish my goal was just getting into right standing with God. So for me, took a lot of repentance, took a lot of, spending time with the Lord and in the prayer room, and just really focusing on God. And then he's just transformed my life upside down. And I'm sure you've probably even seen that in the last 5-6 months. Like, definitely lots of change, and change for the better.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I almost can't recognize. I mean, like, it is crazy what can happen in the span of even a few months in your life, when you're, like you said, you're actually intentional and you're focused on something and you're building something, instead of just kind of letting life come at you any way that it does. I think, even as believers, we often kind of live that, I'm struggling with this, or this is happening to me. Oh, this kind of like this victim mentality towards life, when in reality, like, we already have victory. Yeah. If we just, accept it and believe it and seek God to attain that. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for me, it was honestly not only understanding the fact that, like, what it means to be a Christian, but it's actually taking it serious. Yeah. I mean, you were there, the sermon I preached a few weeks back, where I was like, make it personal. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of so-called Christians out there, and so a lot of people like to call themselves Christians. Everyone wants to be a Christian, or even say that they have faith. Yeah, and, we often, as believers, you get a bad rap because people come in from the world, people who don't know God yet or are not believers, and then they see certain people put on a persona and name call themselves Christians, but you don't really see that from the outside. And then, so I think, we understand what it means to be a Christ follower, a follower of Christ, a disciple, and then actually taking the action behind that, cutting out the things in life, cutting out our flesh, cutting out just different areas of our life that like to drag us down. He is the vine, we are the branches. Yeah. I was actually just listening to a sermon on that. It's funny because, like, I still remember, 7-8 years ago, we had this series at youth called Identity, and it was all about finding identity in Jesus. And I actually was on our media team that filmed the promo for that. And for that, we questioned some people, and I asked the question, what does it mean to find your identity in Christ? And just heard different answers from people. And for some reason, that question is stuck in my mind for a long time, because I think really even up to this year, I didn't fully understand what that means, because I feel like especially in the Western world, it's so easy to
slap the Christian stamp onto who you are and be like, yeah, like even like these Instagram bios of like husband, father, believer,
Philippians 4:13.
yeah, it's just like,
all things.
yeah. It's like, it's so easy to just put that as like, oh yeah, like I'm a believer. I go to church on the weekends, and like even me, like, oh, I'm a believer. So that means that, hey, I maybe I need to watch how I talk, or maybe I need to like, just like watch what I drink, like all these like little things of like, yeah, it's a believer. So like, there's certain restrictions on my life. I never fully understood what it was like to actually pursue Jesus and make that like your total identity, and like everything else is built off of that. Not like, here's me, here's my work, here's my friends, here's Jesus, but like, here's me, here's Jesus, and off of that is like everything else, and I think that's such a different distinction that it's so hard to understand for so many people, especially when, like you said, it's so easy to say you're a Christian and you're so around all this stuff in the world. I think other countries where it's different and there's persecution and stuff like that, they understand this a whole lot more. But for us, it's so easy to get lost in that.
Yeah, man, I got a gospel podcast now.
I mean,
this is the avenue you got to take this thing.
I mean, honestly, yeah. This is what I'm thinking about now, and this is what makes more sense to me now. So this is where.
Yeah. No, I'd add to that. So another big change that happened in 2023. So one of my childhood friends, his brother ended up passing away in July. And June or July, and the New Life or the church that he was a part of, they posted a clip of him preaching, and it was him, preaching, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And at that time I was like, man, Philippians 3:8 says that everything that is with God, like that's all that we have. I'm obviously misquoting it, but basically everything that is not of God, anything that is not Jesus, if I don't understand or have the knowledge of Jesus, it counts as all lost. Like everything is counted all lost without the surpassing knowledge of Jesus Christ. And like that reality, it's a hard pill to swallow, because I feel like as people, we love materialism. We love things of this world. We want the big house.
Like it's easy to understand. It's right here in front of you.
Exactly. But it's like actually understanding that faith, like, man, the nice cars right in the driveway, the nice house, like we could work to that point and get that one day. But I don't see Jesus like vividly with my own two eyes. I don't actually see his figure, so it's obviously really hard for me to believe that. But there's also that Bible verse that's like, blessed are those who believe and have not seen.
Yeah.
So I think
believe because
So literally as a Christian, your whole life needs to revolve around God, around Jesus. And Mark, after he passed away, like there was other clips, and I think he even posted it right around that time. And his brother was telling me about it. It's like, man, my whole life needs to be God. Like I don't go through one thing. I don't go to work. I don't go to school. I don't go hang out with friends just on my own. Like, no, I'm going to go there like with the Lord. Like I want to go there with Jesus. I want to go pray right before my next meeting at work. Like my whole life needs to stem from Jesus. Mm-hmm. And like, if that's where my strength comes from, like I want to show that. I want to, at school, like I know a lot of younger people are struggling at school, and I had those thoughts, but it's like, dude, that's a perfect place for someone to meet people that are still lost and share the good news with each other. And I mean, I wish like I more or less took my faith seriously back then and kind of missed that opportunity. But yeah, like Jesus he's our everything, and actually believing that and understanding it definitely transforms your view on a lot of things.
Yeah. No, that's deep. So that change happened in the summer. So
Yeah.
I want to back up a little bit. So you started dating when?
April.
April
Yeah.
of 2023. So you were 21 years old at the time, right?
Yeah.
What was was that something you were like actively pursuing? What was your mindset kind of going into that? Was this something that you knew was going to be like a long-term thing, or where were you at that point?
In all honesty, like I wasn't actively pursuing. I mean, I've known my fiance since we were kids, obviously going to the same church.
Yeah.
But actually at that time, this past year, I was not actively pursuing, and I was just more or less, she came up to me. Like I wasn't even the one that initiated the conversations.
Wow.
I wasn't even,
Props to her.
come on guys. There's women like that out there that'll come up to you first.
Yes, Lord.
No, but I actually, at that time, I wasn't actively pursuing. I wasn't even like, I mean, I was praying. Don't get me wrong. I have a buddy. We have a mutual friend that he's always like, I was just praying for a best friend, and this is who came. And in all honesty, like I prayed that same prayer. I was like, God, I want a spouse. Like I want someone to do life with. I don't live with my parents, obviously, for the past few years. And, I've already moved out. It's like kind of tired of being on my own. And so, she came up to me. We've had plenty of dates, fun conversations, and, the Lord's definitely blessed that relationship.
Yeah. So has that impacted a lot of kind of your changes and your growth over the last year as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think because you begin to realize, like, it's not just me anymore. It's like there's someone else that's going to be dependent on you. Because for a long time, it's like, oh, I could do certain things and it only affects me, so I could live with the consequences. Like, if you take it that route. So now it's, hey, if I was to, let's say, go out camping for one whole week and never say or send her a message or anything, it's like, man, I'm just ruining someone else's life. Like, they're probably worried, where could I be and stuff. So yeah, it definitely changes you, because you have to understand that, man, my actions don't only have consequences on myself, but also a loved one. So in my scenario, that was a big change in my life.
It's awesome. Yeah, I noticed this myself too, kind of starting last year, is a lot of times it's good to take on new responsibilities or new challenges or things like that will push you to grow. Like for a long time, I wanted to improve my physical walk of life.
Yeah.
And like just wanting it wasn't enough. But when I signed up for a marathon, I'm like, well, shoot, like
I have to do it now.
I got to start training. And then I start running and I'm like, well, it kind of sucks to run when you're so overweight. Like maybe I need to like watch what I eat. And then you're like, well, like, man, if I'm eating this or if I'm drinking this, I'm kind of like ruining all the progress I made yesterday. So maybe I should stop that. And then you're like, well, hey, if I need to run tomorrow morning, I should probably go to sleep on time because I need some rest and I need to be able to recover properly. And it's kind of like this foundational habit that like everything else is built off of. And you start to like, hey, like you're starting to watch different areas of your life. Same thing when I stepped into like leadership at youth. I'm like, well, even before that, I remember when in the beginning of last year, I was really thinking about it and I felt like I had a calling to start leading more and like sharing more. I'm like, well, if I'm leading people, I need to know what I believe in myself because I've been around faith for all my life, but I never really discovered it for myself. So I started digging deeper into that. But then when you are up on stage and you have a microphone in your hands and you are like trying to teach other people, you're like, well, do I live this out myself? Do I see this in my own life? Like, hey, like if I'm an example, like I need to actually take these things more seriously. And those two things last year, as well as like surrounding myself with like-minded people and friends that sharpen me and encourage me and push me. Those three things were the biggest transformational things for me in my life. like that I think God put there for a specific reason. Like a lot of times you want change, but you like you said, like it's not just when it's not just you anymore. It's like, well, now you're starting to take it a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, and like especially like in the case of a teaching position or like a pastoral or leadership perspective, it's like, well, it's not only me, it's my flock, it's the people that look up to me, it's my community of friends, it's our friend group, we hang out with a lot of the same guys, and it's, if I to see any one of them struggling, it's like we're always there, we'll always reach out, and it's putting yourself in a position of not where I am the sole dependency, but I'm fully dependent on God and those people around me that He's placed, and that really kicks you in the butt and puts you in a spot of man, I really got to start doing it. Because for you, if it wasn't for, let's say you didn't decide to do the marathon and you didn't really want to really pursue teaching at church, where would you be at that point? Would you maybe even be in the same spot? If there was no goal or end vision you want to achieve, it's the blind leading the blind at that point.
And even with running, man, it sounds like, it almost sounds cheesy. It feels weird even saying this, but even when I was running the marathon and it was one of the hardest things I was doing, I was thinking about everyone else that is supporting me and encouraging me, and all the people that I told I was doing it. Bro, 4 miles into the marathon, my knee got messed up. It started hurting. I was after 14, 15 miles, I was walking and I'm like, dude, it's going to be 2 hours, 3 more hours if I just walk this thing. I just need to quit. And then I'm just thinking man, if I quit, how am I going to look all those people in the face that I told this?
All the people ringing the bells.
All my friends, all my family. I remember at mile 16, I started pushing myself to run after walking for a mile and a half. And it was the most exuberant. I think that's the word you used. You just made up a word. It's stuck in my head now. It was the most extraordinary. That doesn't sound weird. It was just really painful. Yeah. It was just so hard to push myself. And then I just get a random text from Daniel, our buddy, and he's just like, "Hey, you got this. Keep going." Just out of nowhere. And I cried. I literally cried. And I just kept running. I'm like,
prophetic.
I'm like, bro, this is it's those. It was almost I was doing it not just for me, but for everyone else too. And just the example that I need to set. And it's, for me, it's always helped to make my why bigger than myself. Because if it's just me, it's easy to take things easy. It's easy to slack off. It's easy to just give up. But when it's bigger than you, when you're really trying to help and impact and serve other people, I feel like you take things a little more seriously.
Yeah. Early, I think February, I read a book called a little book on the Christian faith by John Calvin. And he has a line in there where he writes that if I give my life to Christ, I'm no longer my own, but I'm God's. I belong to Christ. It's actually understanding the death, I'm dying to myself. So it's I don't have, a lot of people always pray God, let your will be done, Lord. But when it's time to actually start doing that, no one wants to let go of their own personal desires. And you could even use the concept of running. I'm sure your first mile running was very hard, right? You look back to early last year, okay, I even 1 mile. Okay, now let's go 2. Now let's go 3. The initial steps are hard. It's very hard to start pruning and cutting stuff out of your life. In John, where, God is the vine dresser, we are the branches, and He's going to prune, He's going to cut different areas of our lives out. Those things that He gets cut out always are painful. And for you, it's, it was the running. Hey, I want to pursue the running, and so it's time for me to cut out this, and this. Spiritually speaking, it's the exact same way. Man, I want to be a preacher. I want to help out at church. Okay, these are areas of my life that I'm going to have to cut out. And for a while, for me, it was very difficult to cut those things out. But man, once you do, like once you completely and truly die to yourself, like it's that, like that would be my biggest like revelation this past year, when I'm extremely happy that God just really nailed it into my head. It's like, it's no longer my life. Like I don't make my decisions. They don't just affect me, my loved ones, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. There's this, I forget what the scripture is, but Paul is talking about like running the race and running it and completing it until the end. And like, obviously running, like any sort of running analogy, I'm like, oh heck yes. Like, what can I learn from this? It's like, it kind of goes back to my example of like, when I started running, I started to realize that in order for me to complete the race, in order for me to finish, I had to say no to certain things in life. And it wasn't saying no to things that maybe are bad or things that are sin, or like, it was just saying no to like staying up late.
Yeah.
It was saying no to eating muchas gracias every other day, which I used to, like, which is a Mexican restaurant. Like it was just like saying no to the things that aren't necessarily a no, but they're just a no for me. And it's kind of the same thing I realized in my spiritual walk. I remember I had this conversation with a friend, like the last summer. I was really starting to realize, like, well, what does it really mean to do everything to the glory of God? What does it really mean? Like, how can I do everything to the glory of God? And then you're starting to realize, like, well, hey, if I'm watching like a rated R movie with cussing and naked scenes and like all this other stuff, I'm like, I can't do that every single day and sit there contently thinking that I'm living to the glory of God. It's like, if every other song I listen to is explicit Drake. And Drake, my top artist for 4 years in a row, like if everything that I'm putting in and everything I'm consuming is like pushing me further away from that, well, then I can't like set my mind on things of God. I can't set my mind on things above if everything that I'm feeding myself is pushing me further away from that. Mm-hmm. And like even who I'm spending time with and who I'm putting myself around, and like you start to really question all those things when you realize, and again, it goes back to the intentionality thing. When you realize what you're setting your goal at, which is, hey, my goal is to complete a marathon, or my goal is to pursue Jesus and be more like Jesus, you start to realize that you have to push certain things out. And it's maybe not the easiest at the moment, but as you keep getting closer to that goal, as you keep getting closer to that, you start to appreciate that and you start to realize how beneficial that is to your life. And I think that last year taught me a lot of that, for sure. And I feel like you're kind of in the same boat. Yeah,
definitely in the same boat. You know, it's a year goes by quick, and like a lot of stuff changed, and I'm just extremely grateful to get that like understanding that the life I live is no longer my own, and we do it all for the glory of God. So, yeah.
But that was just one down a rabbit hole that.
No, I like the rabbit holes.
Yeah, this
is
fun.
This
is fun. Well, so this is traditionally a career podcast. Yeah. So, you said, was it in June, July that you started your new role? Tell me what you're doing.
June 7th. So, I'm a superintendent for a developer, BTS development in Vancouver, Portland area. Doing a lot of Portland infill, townhouses, multifamilies, from duplexes up to 7-plex, 8-plexes, and filling up Portland with more houses.
Yeah, because that's what Portland needs.
Yeah.
How did you get here? I know you said you kind of were doing a similar thing before, but
yeah. So, I mean, since high school, I'll just like kind of more or less go back. I never knew exactly what I wanted to do. I got really big into.
You can move it around a little bit too.
Oh yeah.
Aim at you.
Yeah, I got really big on like, I'm gonna go electrical, and then I was like, okay, that's too much school and effort, whatever. I'm gonna go plumbing. I'm like, okay, but who wants to be a plumber? And then so like I honestly never knew what I wanted to do, and been around construction my whole life. Hanging sheetrock, hanging, framing, flooring, like done a little bit of everything. And then like the big prayer in my life was like, man, time's going to come where I'm going to need to start doing stuff. So I ended up I went to college dropped out. No, I went to college. I'm trying to remember what I went to college 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Dropped out 3 times. So don't go to school. Just kidding. No, I went to a community college. I'm trying to remember what I even went for the first time. I don't even remember. Second time was already when I moved to Idaho. And that was I think it was something like it was a biology degree because I wanted to be a biomedical engineer. Like, I don't know, just so random. And then I've ended up going like through my whole, not like a midlife crisis, but like a come to the Lord moment, repentance, got saved and everything. So I was like, okay, I want to go to Bible school. I ended up going to Bible school. And then after Bible school, I was like, all right, I'm going to go move back to Portland and go to a seminary. So I went to seminary for a little bit. And then a lingering prayer throughout this whole process has been, man, what I still want to do. Like, if God bless my career, like there's something, I want to find something that I could still pursue God, still invest into the kingdom, still be there for church, not be so tied down to I can't even like take a day off and stuff. So that prayer got answered exactly 2.5 years ago, where there's a company hiring for like an assistant superintendent role. So I was like, project management, I like talking to people. I enjoy, managing the operation and seeing a project come to completion. I was like, I'll just give it a shot. So I was at that company for about a year. I mean, I still basically don't know anything compared to some of the other guys, but, I started, I was definitely really green, didn't know anything, and I was more or less taken under the wing by my boss at the time, and they invested a lot of knowledge, a lot of good teaching. And then this past June rolls around, and it was more or less a little bit of a bigger company, but we're rapidly growing. And I think just more or less the stars aligned, and it's still definitely like it's always a risk just leaving something that hey, I for sure have a job and a future at this company. I was like, but hey, I could be making X amount more, and I could still, who knows the ceiling. Like, I don't know. I had a ceiling at the other company because I was like, well, probably be salary the whole time, and let's say they cap you out at 150. Like, that's still extremely well, but I'm just saying, like, theoretically, let's cap it at 150. I was like, or hey, here's a growing company that's willing to invest into its employees, that's willing to give you opportunities to maybe even invest into itself and just keep growing and growing internally. And then I definitely see myself from moving from a superintendent up to a project manager. And then even in that case, what's to say that we just can't keep growing and getting bigger. So I was like, the stars aligned. I ended up making that switch, and I'm extremely happy I did. I was kind of more or less thrown like right into the mix and completed a few projects already. And then, we got only for myself right now, there's only about 5 or 6 active sites. But stepping into 2024, there's plenty of room to grow. We got lots of stuff coming up, and I'm just really excited to take that into account.
So the best part of the job is it brought you here, right to my house.
Exactly. No, and another big thing that obviously we've been talking a lot about faith, but it's also a Christian company, and like all the owners are believers, and all the employees, as far as I know, are Christians. And like, to me, that's a big value. And I know I briefly brought up the fact that I went to seminary. I didn't graduate, obviously dropped out, but God's given me opportunities to not only reach out to, like I saw myself switching from work from church, like, oh, I wanted to be a pastor. Like I was set on that to work. And then the return is I always want to be able to serve God in any avenue. And then that's why I also went into project management to begin with, was the people I meet, every single subcontractor, all of the inspectors, like it's perfect soil, perfect people to just, sow the seeds and to just bring up the gospel, like every chance you get. Like I meet a ton of people. I'm constantly on the phone, and, even just like God bless, or, something small to like just get to people. And, that was always like a big prayer, and I finally got that answered, and I'm extremely grateful to being in the position where I'm at, only being 22.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And I, would you say that your job and being put in that position was like another? Would you say that was a role in kind of some of the growth that you had to go through and maturing? Like,
yeah.
Where would you place your job in that mix?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
My favorite part about the current job, it's like, man, I get to see all of these guys. I get to, I'm the one that approves their invoices, and I'm not the one obviously directly paying them, but our company is. It's like I've thought about the concept. Like going back to the dependency thing. It's like I'm able to feed so many families by, giving so much work and giving so many opportunities. So like that's definitely been like a big eye opener in my growth. It's like, man, it's not only about me. Like there's so many people that are reliant on our work and reliant on the things and projects that we have going on. So like in terms of my growth side, it's definitely been a big bonus, because it's not only taught me like the values, but it's also taught me to manage even my own circumstances, to manage my own time, to manage my communication between other people. I know like we've had that conversation in terms of our own youth leadership, where like, okay, everyone has got roles. Like, let's just break it down like how I would break it down at work. Like this person could go here, this person could go do that. It's like, it's definitely taught me a lot in terms of managing attitudes, managing people, and having, obviously seeing a project come to fruition.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Jesus told Peter, if you love me, feed my sheep. And Serge is feeding
and I feed
subcontractors.
Yeah.
But no, it's like me too. Like certainly I think work, I think there's like this, there's like a couple different mindsets when it comes to work. Even there's people that try to find a job that fits them and like that they're comfortable with and they think they can do well. I remember when I started my career, and I feel like I've probably talked about it on different podcasts. It's been a year and a half though, so I don't remember. But like when I started my career in sales, it wasn't because I was like, oh, I love sales, I'm going to be so good at this. It was like, hey, I love this outcome that you can have. Let me see if I can get there. And it was a lot of stretching. There was a lot of growth that I had to go through in order to like find my place in this field. But I think it's taught me so much about communication. It's taught me so much about managing my time efficiently, managing different tasks. Right now, I'm an account manager, and I manage, I think, 160 different companies that I work with. And it's like managing different relationships, remembering what people care about, trying to be personal with each person, trying to align our interests. Like, hey, this person wants to be successful at their job. If I can help them be successful, they'll want to make me successful too. And it's like so much of that, trying to figure that stuff out, but it's helped me so much in just everything else. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about finding a job that challenges you, and allows you to grow and allows you to continue growing. Like you said, that seems like that's something that attracted you to your current job, is just the ability to keep growing too. It's good in every aspect of life, I would say.
Yeah, it definitely is. A lot of people get bogged down into the mindset of like 9 to 5, let's say. But I mean, 9 to 5s can be good if you actually enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like there's the quote everyone uses, oh, get a job you like and you'll never work a day in your life. Like, yeah, it's true. But like, I mean, I still put in work. I love what I do, but it's still time. It's still effort. And yeah, like I'm a lot of people could really be down on what they have, but it's also kind of going back like, well, are you also making that situation great? You know, so I think probably for you, there was times, there was ups, there was downs, but you probably looked at it like, okay, I can make the situation better by, you know, hey, I'll just block out, let's say 2 hours of my day. I can meet with X amount of clients, and then I can move on to this and do this task so I don't get bored. In my case, I'm more or less restructured my day. I'm like, hey, I'm on site in the morning till about the afternoon. I'll just wrap up the day at the office, do some scheduling, emails, whatever. And then so it's really just making the most out of your current situation. And so for me, there's still definitely room to grow. There's still definitely tasks that I could manage and areas I could definitely be better at. I'm not saying I'm perfect. But yeah, it's really, really healthy and really good to see yourself, like where you're going. If I'm in love with my job, where do I want to keep going, you know, having that vision.
Yeah. And it's like, it's still work. Like I would safely say that I love running at this point, but I still have to force myself out the door some days. You know, especially right now I'm in a marathon training block and I'm running 5 days a week. And there's days when you're just like, I just wanted to relax today.
And just remind yourself, who's going to carry the boats?
Who's going to carry the boats? Yeah. But it's like you push yourself out. And I was telling you earlier today, like the first couple miles I ran today was rough. And I'm like, man, maybe I could just cut it short. It's a snow day. I have so many excuses to go back. But then you push yourself. And then like somewhere in the middle, you're like, oh, I'm actually enjoying this. And then at the end, you're like, I'm so glad I did that.
There's always excuses to not do something.
Yeah.
Like there's always a million excuses to not do something.
Yeah. Just because how do I phrase this? Like you can do something hard and still enjoy it. But a lot of times people look for something easy and find enjoyment in that. You could, but it wears off.
Yeah.
The thing about my job right now is there's always room for me to grow. I never feel like I've completely mastered my job. I can always get better. And that's where I find excitement and like, okay, like even if it's going to suck having this conversation, sometimes I have a call coming up with a customer and I'm not looking forward to it. Like, man, I have to like, you know, maybe have a conversation that's not going to be a pleasant one, but that's where you find growth. You know, if I have to do this workout, I have to do this run, it's not going to be an easy one. But at the end, you're like, that's where growth happens. Growth happens in the mundane and the hard, in spiritual walk too. You know, like it's not always like, oh man, like I'm super excited to work on this sermon, or I'm super excited to spend this time like reading Deuteronomy or Leviticus, trying to get, you know, it's like, but it's like all of that is good, and you're always going to find enjoyment in that when you get into that. And sometimes it just takes an extra push, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you say, like, taking your career and your mindset, like, do you have a ceiling or do you have a particular vision that you want to achieve?
My career?
Like what's your career goal?
You're turning this around on me.
Yeah, I know. I'm the interviewer.
Honestly, I don't know. I think last year I went through a season where, well, you know this, but I was doing some consulting work with a company while working my full-time job too. And I kind of saw this vision of like, if this thing takes off, I can run an entire team and I can start putting people under me and kind of start growing and having more impact with people that way. And I kind of I was excited about that. And I was really excited about the growth that could help me like see and even myself and in leading people and making decisions instead of just working on my own self, being an individual contributor, which I am now, to like making decisions like impact the company and the team. But that didn't pan out. And then I just kind of went back to my current role and really started diving in deeper into that. And, you know, there's enjoyment in both. Like the way that the trajectory works at my company is you can either go the route of pursuing like management or leadership. If you want to stay in the sales field, you can go the route of pursuing management or leadership there, or you can keep going up market, which means you start taking on bigger and bigger clients in your book of business. So I started working with small businesses. Now I'm working with mid-market businesses. So they're a little bit larger, a little bit more complex. And the enjoyable part about that is when you're working with more complex businesses, there's more complex solutions that you can offer them. And, like I worked a deal with a company that used us for one very small thing. We got in touch with their president and we told them, well, hey, we have all these solutions that can solve these issues for your overall organization, and kind of sold that dream. And now you're like strategizing and having fun of like, really, instead of just selling a thing, you're selling a solution and you're helping people achieve their business outcomes they're looking for. So there's more of that. The further up the chain you go, when you start working, 7-figure deals with Amazon or Google, which, we have at our company. Like, I kind of like that too, of just being a little bit more strategic. So that's kind of where I'm thinking about right now, of just, really being able to challenge myself to be more solutions focused rather than transactions focused with clients. So that's kind of where I'm thinking about in my next year or so.
Yeah. It's like a lot of people obviously chase monetary gain, which I mean that's a big driving factor for me. I'm sure it's probably a driving factor for you as well. And you kind of brought up your also like problem solving for companies. Like I'm sure there's probably a lot of people that are trying to figure out like, oh, get rich quick scheme or whatever. But notice like for you guys, you more or less you could find those bigger deals in the, hey, there's this company, you guys having a issue reaching out to this demographic of people, here's a solution. Like people will pay big money for that. In my case, I'm like, takes me 6 weeks to close out a project after, let's say, it's obviously not accurate, but I'm saying, hey, let's say from drywall to completions, it takes someone 2 months. I'm like, what can I do to make it 1.5? What can I do to make it 6 weeks? And like, that's where a lot of the monetary side could really benefit someone or a person pursuing a career and wondering, hey, where can I see growth, or where can I get a raise, or what company can I start? It's like, look for areas to make other people's lives easier.
Yeah.
Like Amazon, dude, we'll ship stuff to your door next day. Like, okay, sweet. I don't have to go to the store anymore. Like, there's countless and countless of companies that are there to make our lives easier, which we could get into, but there's like pluses and minuses of that. But I feel like on the career side, there's probably a decent amount of people that are wondering, okay, what can I do next? How can I get better? And that's come up with a solution to make someone else's life easier. Yeah. And dude, you found your avenue.
Yeah, it's actually funny you bring this up. I was just having a conversation with a coworker of mine. So we actually started at my company at the same exact time. We were the same onboarding class, but he kind of started in a little bit of a different role. And, fast forward, it's been a little over 4 years at the company now. And he actually works for this new arm of the business we launched like a year and a half ago, which is a consulting arm that actually goes into the businesses that we sell products to and like works with their sales and marketing departments and their operations departments to figure out how to actually implement the stuff we sell them. And they have multi 6-figure deals, 7-figure deals that, they're selling because of the value they're able to provide and actually show people how they can, hey, implement this thing that's actually going to bring this result to your company, and actually build that out for them and build that out with them and launch it and kind of, hold them hand by hand as they do this. But he had a very interesting trajectory, and he's worked in a number of different roles in our business. And one of the things that he was telling me is like, yeah, a lot of times people think about like, hey, this is what I want to do, or like, this is the role that I would love, or this is what I would, like to do, like get me there, and have these conversations with their leadership or whatever. But he said the people that are successful in promotions are the ones that like really think about what is the business outcome? Like, what does the business want? How can I align myself with helping the business get there? And if you do that, everyone's going to give you the promotion. Like, the role he has is like a new role that he just got into because he was putting himself in a position where he can do something like that. And that's how he was able to work his way up to that. So like, yeah, like if you align even in your current job and you're just like, it's one thing to keep, asking for a promotion or asking for a position, but it's another thing to make yourself valuable in that area so that that promotion is basically given to you. Mm-hmm. Just like with you looking different ways to shorten the job cycle, like that's bringing value to the business.
Exactly.
And therefore that's going to pay off for you too.
Yeah, you always have to give your superior, your boss, the owners of your company a reason why, because like also a driving factor for me, I'm like, there's nothing standing if I'm not doing my job, like pay another guy 80, 100K, 90,000 a year, do the same job, maybe even get better results. Like you always have to be more or less the X factor. Yeah. Like a big thing you always hear is like, I want to bring something to the table no one else can. Mm-hmm. So it could be even be little things like, have a great attitude, have an attitude that wants to see change and wants to see growth, have an attitude that, man, I'm willing to more or less cut out time of my day and I'll spend it working on, let's say, this new system for scheduling. Like, have an X factor, be a like a drive in that company or current situation you're in. For me, there's a couple different areas that I want to explore on the construction side where, I brought up to you like automated messaging for scheduling. That'd be a really cool thing. I still tinkering around with it. There's pluses and minuses to it, but like imagine a software. Let's say I start a project next week. I press a couple buttons and I'm able to send every single contractor their schedule, the plans, everything, boom, and it's right there on their phones. They know exactly what to do. Like that'd be a really cool thing to implement. So there's different areas where I think I bring value to my current company. A big one is obviously like I'm young, I'm ambitious. Yeah. No owner, no business owner is going to want to lose someone who's young and wants to actually grow with the company, or someone that's like willing to take a pay cut, just to see the company do better and keep growing. So I think, for your case, it's like, finding different avenues and meeting different clients and, trying to be personal and relational with them and, ask them about their fishing trip or something, like, I don't know. I think like that's a great avenue for anyone that's interested in it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they say people buy from people they like, and people they trust, and they can't really trust you unless you make that effort. But like from your aspect, I think that's like, you being young, but also a lot of times it's good to have those fresh people, especially in a business like construction that's so like, it's old, right? It's an old industry. Yeah. And like, there's a lot of like, oh, it's always been done this way, so this is how we do it. But when you take someone with a fresh mindset that can be like, well, I know this is how it's always been done, but can we do it better and find better ways of doing that? I think the sky's the limit for that. Yeah. And I think people appreciate that from an ownership perspective as well. Yeah.
There was a stat I read where I'm trying to remember the exact figure, but basically it's like for every 10 people leaving and retiring from the construction industry, only only 3 or like 5 to 7 are only coming in. So in the long run speaking, you're going to see a big shorthand of like labor force. And I mean, it's pretty obvious. Like you look at the people nowadays, like we're just not built the same anymore.
The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few.
Yeah, there's few laborers in the kingdom of God and in real life. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, so it's like there will most likely be a time where I'll have to adapt and figure out what works best for us, and what companies will have to switch out. Which subs we just no longer. We could work with them because we've outgrown them, so it's definitely going to be really interesting in the construction side, seeing how things pan out, and obviously country-wide, nationwide, like seeing how things are going to work out with work and career, for sure, especially election year. And
this is not a political podcast. Sorry.
Yeah, gotta hold me back.
No, it's very interesting to see, especially in industries like that the nation is built off of, but that need to see some change as other things progress. And like me working in a very, it's a tech company, so a lot of our stuff is very like up to date, but a lot of our customers are older customers and people that are, or businesses that are giants but have been around forever, and a lot of their stuff is a lot more outdated than you might think.
Yeah.
But a lot of this, digitalization and modernization and any other buzzword you can throw out there is going to be key. But so you asked me the question, and you kind of beat me to asking you the question, like, where do you see yourself? 2024, it's a new year. Obviously, you're getting married this year, which is going to be big, and starting your family. Where does that leave you with work? Like, where do you see your future there, and how do you see progression there? And talk to that.
I mean, currently as I sit, and Lord willing, going into this next year, I mean, I'm buying into our company. I'm buying into BTS development. We're gonna, I'd want to do, I would honestly say like my biggest goal for this year is hit that. I don't have like a specific project number like to completion, but like everything that hits my desk, like, I want to finish. I think like comfortably I can manage 6 to 7 projects, which it's not just 6 to 7 houses. You're looking at, currently I have, let's say currently I have 5 projects, but you're looking at, 35 different units, 35 different technically individual houses. But there's no like specific numerical value that I want to hit. It's more of a personal growth for me. I want to, let's say, take in a 4-plex, I want to complete that in 4.5 months tops. Like, I want to be as efficient as possible. So for one of my big goals going into 2024 is efficiency.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dead waste and dead days that you could cut out just by simple project management, and by honestly like cutting out procrastination. It's like, let's say you're going out throughout the project and excavator runs his range drain pipe, let's say about a foot off from exactly where your gutter is going to go. And you're like, oh, I'll just, finish that at the end. I could just have someone dig it, move and get it done. It's like, no, like, let's just do it right away. Because you'll notice that those nuances will start piling up. And then when it's really time to close out the project and get your product on sale, there's like a million little things that just need to get done. And you're like, dude, I could have just taken the time, taken the extra day to just get it done right away. As soon as you notice that problem, just hop on it, get it fixed. So yeah, I would say my goal for 2024 definitely is efficiency. And then long term, it's more or less staying with the company and just growing. And
how do you grow in your role? Like, what would be the next logical step from superintendent? Like, or do you see that being the role you continue in?
No. So the next logical role would be one up, which is project management. So right now, it's interesting because let's say there's a site superintendent. There's different types of superintendents, but currently how we're structured is there's a project manager. He more or less would manage the superintendents who manage all of the projects. Because I'm a superintendent, I have 5 projects, 7 projects, 10 projects, whatever the number could be. Someone still needs to know what's going on big picture wise, what to give, what project who. So currently how we're structured right now, there's one project manager, there's one superintendent, and then there's a couple labor guys. I envision our company going to a role where there's going to be, in the next, let's say, I'll take even 5 to 10 years, like long term, I'd envision us being, 3, 4 project managers, maybe up to like 8 superintendents, and then a whole separate department that's going to take care of all of the buyer addendums and warranty repairs and stuff. So it's not going to just be 2 laborers. But yeah, I'll definitely move up from currently being on site, figuring out all of the issues that we go to, one up project manager, to where the owners can come to me. They'll be like, hey, what's the update on this, and this? I could give them that exact answer. I could see what projects I have coming up in the pipeline. I know who to give it to. Of course, the office side of work where it's invoicing, it's booking, it's contracts, it's emails back and forth, it's design questions, which a lot of that I could handle now, but there's so much that goes on the day to day in construction where a lot of people don't more or less like really understand, because they just look at, oh, you're just a glorified secretary who just schedule people. But it's like, yeah, when I'm on site, I'm a younger guy and no one really wants to respect me. So you have to more or less like earn that respect. But I'm the one that deals with the city. I'm the one that deals with the poor quality and trying to, figure ways to get that fixed. I'm the one that deals with the neighbors. I'm the one that deals with literally everything, like has to go through me to get that project done. There's constantly issues. Nothing's ever going to run smoothly in construction. There's always going to be delays. Your goal is just to minimize those and come up with the solution right away. So for me, I definitely want to stay with my current company and then move up to eventually a project manager role, and just kind of see where that goes. But that's my current goal.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of opportunity to grow.
Yeah. A lot of people want to find a place that has like high ceilings, and I think I've found that. So I'm extremely, extremely blessed in that avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, like aside from that, I was even thinking to myself recently, I'm like, man, like what else would I even want to do? Like there's no other job that I want to do. Like this has the perfect mix. I'll be out in the field, walking the sites and meeting with everyone, but I also have my alone time in the office where I could just listen to music and work, schedule, do stuff. Like it has such a great balance to that I enjoy, but there's still definitely a lot of room for improvement and growth, but yeah.
That's awesome. So you said it was 2.5 years ago that you entered?
Yeah. Yep. 2.5 years.
So if you were to, I guess, look back 2.5 years ago, and maybe there's people out there that are in a similar position where they've dropped out of school 3 times. They're not sure what's going on, or they're just like, maybe they're even in a career that they've been in for a while, but they're just not sure if it's the position to stick in. Like, what would be your advice in figuring out and finding out like what you really are meant to do or where you are meant to go?
Oh man. For me, I got lucky because this is the only company that hired me to start with. I would say that a lot of younger guys, I'll speak to the younger gentlemen, they want to...
Ladies? No?
Because I could only speak to construction. That's my only experience. I don't really know anything else. I'm not a restaurant guy. I'm not a business only guy or retail or whatever different avenue. So construction speaking, generally it's younger guys. Honestly, I see guys that are super young that work for us or work with different subs. And I'm like, dude, if you really just focus, live below your means, and strive to seeing in my scenario, your project or line of work to completion and do whatever you can to get that done, there is endless avenues of growth in construction. You go down to, anyone could start as a laborer. One of the owners in our company started as a laborer who was, picking up trash at one point. Like, dude, that was me at one point. I was literally picking up garbage. Like no one ever wants to talk about that. No one ever wants to bring up, the process to get stuff done.
Started at the bottom.
Yeah, like no one ever wants to talk about the bottom. Everyone only wants to talk about the top. But it's me understanding that I can make my life so much easier if I just work really hard now, and then like it'll pay off in the future. So it's for younger people that are more or less looking to step into a role or figure out a career, make the most out of what you can right now. And I feel in my scenario, it opened up different avenues. And so what I would say, it's, if let's say for an example, I'm a flooring installer and I install floors, I install vinyl, whatever, tile. I mean, it's a different trade, but let's just say you're a flooring installer. Not the greatest job. You're always on your knees. You're hammering away, cuts, bruises, whatever. But there's so much more growth to where I can move up to more or less being a project manager where I schedule out the installers, and then I could move up to the next role where I could open up, you build contacts, you build relationships. I could open up my own company, and then there's so much more growth. So I think it's more or less buckling down. I'm enjoying, let's say I enjoy doing a different trade. I could really get into that, and it opens up so many different avenues, and you meet a lot of people. So like never waste those moments too. So that would be my word of advice.
Never waste those moments.
Don't waste the time you currently have. Keep plugging away. And in different areas, different avenues always open up opportunity.
And the people piece, I want to touch on that because your current job, you did get there because of connections, right? Or like that's how you got introduced to your current job.
Well, the current company,
yeah,
not the field of work. The connections definitely got my name in there. But like I still had to go through the hiring process, just like anyone else. I still had to put in the work.
Yeah, I'm not discounting that. But just more so, you said like, you never know who you meet.
You never know who you meet.
Because it is important, like having those right people that, push you in that direction. Like I wouldn't have considered my field if I hadn't actually worked with a recruiter that reached out to me randomly and like introduced me to this whole idea of like, the sales and stuff like that. And I didn't end up getting a job with him, but I worked with, anyways, like it's important to like, take in those people and take in different perspectives and connections. Yeah, you never know where they lead you. Mm-hmm. And I definitely agree with just work hard at where you're at, because the worst thing you can do is wait. Like action.
Time waits for no one, man.
Time waits for no one, man. Amen. Well, this has been a fun episode of a lot of different things.
That's it. And I'm gonna get into the church stuff.
That's for another
church
day.
Life.
I don't think this will be our only conversation, but I mean, anything else you want to leave people with, or any other thoughts you had?
No, I wouldn't say there's thoughts, but I would always venture to everyone listening. It's spend time with the Lord, spend time with your loved ones. Don't, like I brought up we were joking about, time waits for no one. And honestly, it's true. Like, everyone has got 24 hours in a day. Anyone could be a motivational speaker if they got a podcast mic. But time waits for no one. Really just buckle down where you're at. Don't make enemies. Make friends with different people that you meet. Like a little side note before we wrap up. Like, I have a contractor who does all of our trash pickups, recycling, whatever. And dude, this guy is the most like diligent worker. You call him, he'll be there. And he's also like the best salesman. Like, he'll talk to every single guy on the job site, meet up with them, give him his business card. He'll talk to neighbors, talk their ear off. And like, yeah, even though from the outside looking in, like, oh, he's just, picking up trash. But you look at the big picture side, dude, he's getting his name out there. He's putting in the extra hours. He'll put in the extra effort. We'll pay him more. And, like, taking that same mindset, be serious about career-wise. Like, be serious about where you're at. Mm-hmm. Take into account, because only person in control of your current situation a majority of the time is you. And so really just be serious about it. Really just buckle down and put in the work. As it's definitely much easier said than done, but don't really waste it. Don't waste your life.
Don't waste your life.
Yeah, don't waste different moments. Don't waste different people you meet with. Don't waste that conversation you could have with a potential client. Don't waste the conversation you could have with maybe even potential coworker. And like, really take things serious and, press on.
Awesome.
So.
Well, thank you, Serge. Like I said, I think we'll have another conversation in the near future. This actually has been a really fun way to restart the whole podcast thing. Let me know what you guys think of this whole fireside situation we have going. I think it was pretty cozy, but we'll see how it turns out. Thanks for the time.
Appreciate it.
All right, well, let's cut.